So, thanks everybody. Thanks, Anna, also for coming and for joining this conversation. So, postcards, you did it for 2 years, and partly one part. Well, you worked on that film during your residency in Prague in 2012, and residency was part of this program organized by the Ministry of Culture, Krasila Vasi. So could you just maybe tell us about how was it structured, that there were also other artists with you, and which kind of benefits did you have for your work? And maybe later on I will just ask you about the film a little bit more, how did it fit into such a complex work that actually was presented tonight?
Well, yeah, it is part of the whole creations in France season, and in Prague they do residencies every year for a different country. They invite 5 or I don't know, up to 5 artists from the certain country, and for 2012 was Croatia. And yeah, I don't know, for me, and this is not the work that is finished there, it was finished a year later, and I started working on it before, and I think that for me it's always problematic to go on residencies and actually to find some which is kind of appropriate for what am I doing, because with the residencies often they expect you to do some work, to finish, and to be finished in 2 to 6 months, and I'm usually working on films for 2 years, and so then it's always okay, but we need something to be exhibited. So in this, for me it was also it pushed me back into the gallery, because I was before working more in the gallery, and lately in years I'm doing just single channel films. And it was, as working with film, for me was interesting to go back to that field and not to have this film is always finished and you never work on it later. Once you finish it after so much work, then you don't change it. And with the gallery pieces, they're in a way they're always live, and you always have possibility to add something, to change the settings, to do this certain so this was compromise, and also some possibility to try to push myself out of what I'm doing And yeah, I actually produced 3 channel installations which are not in the film. All the 3 scenes are a bit different. But what gave me, what for me was the most valuable thing was to have 2 months to be able to work just on the film. As I'm employed, I work on Fine Art Academy and blah blah, this having son and life and a lot of things to do in a day, and then to have this 2 months to work just on one thing, it's really precious. Okay, so maybe you have some more questions.
Thank you. Now, since we also, as you also probably noticed from the conclusions, this discussions of residencies, several times it was stressed that artists should not be pressed to produce something during their residency programs. And I just wanted to ask you, were you invited for this residency, or you applied, or you made an application?
They did, the Museum of Contemporary Art did, they invited, I don't know how many artists to present their work to the director of the museum, and then she chose 5 or 6 of us to come there.
But with such a similar experience, would you reapply for some kind of residency that will offer you 2 or 3 months of peace and work, and that will somehow give you the time to reflect on some future works?
Well, I often think yes, and then I don't apply. But yeah, I just wanted to say the second problem with my production is that I work on film. And as with them, we were in conversation how to do that at all, because they don't have a lab in Nantes, and you can't develop the film. And I'm working with 16mm film, and I'm not able to stop doing that and to work with HD just because of residencies. And for me, it's in a way it's silly that it's cheaper for me to produce films in Croatia because I know, and then I need cinematographer, I need a bunch of people, I need a bunch of equipment. They don't have anything. I mean, when they give you studio, which is like 10 meters by 4, I can't do anything with it. I need like 400 square meters if I need studio. And then when you tell somebody that you need like proper studio for 2 months, they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have it. So for me, I think it would be more appropriate either to go somewhere where you have really kind of excellent equipment, either to this kind of matching to do. Because for film I got the money from the Ministry of Culture, and then I used this time actually to be able to think and to work.
Thank you. And Bojana, you also like work. You are an artist primarily, so and you were also an artist at different residencies. So maybe you can just tell something about your experiences as well.
Oh, I've been to quite a few residencies, and each experience is an experience on its own. But what should I take out that could be a bit also useful information, let's put it that way? Oh yeah, maybe I can talk about the residency in Chongqing in China. I had the exhibition in Beijing, and the curator from this residency saw the exhibition, and I was invited to go and do a residency for a month and a half in Chongqing in central China. And to be honest, before he invited me, I knew about Chongqing only from Wong Kar-wai's movie, Chongqing Express. And then I Googled it, and I saw that it's Sichuan province, and it's actually the biggest municipality in the world, currently having around 11 million people living in there. But although I was invited, I was supposed to write a project proposal, which almost, I think, everyone who applied to residency know that normally you need to write a project proposal, motivation letter, send your portfolio and your CV, let's say roughly, but more or less this would be the things. So I did write a project proposal, but I was still under impressions of Beijing and Shanghai, and I've been to China a few times before, but only in the biggest cities. So I wrote a proposal that I wanted to make a video, 6-channel video installation. So I was a bit way too enthusiastic. So counted I have 6 weeks. So I wanted to film, edit, and present this 6-channel installation in 6 weeks. And they loved the idea. They said, great, let's do it. So, but the first moment when I arrived, I realized that I'm the only tourist in this huge city. And it was totally different from what I expected. And that's one thing that it's very important, not to have too many expectations when you go to a residency, but just to go and to deal on the spot with whatever will happen. So it took me maybe 2 weeks or so to adapt and to find my way, and I had a translator, and I think the poor girl got totally tired of me by some time, because she was either the whole time with me, or I would call her if she is not with me. So how the time progressed, I realized that there's no way I'm going to do this project. There's just no way I'm going to manage to do everything in time. But I got a new idea for making a performance. So I talked with a curator, and of course, at the first moment, he wasn't the happiest curator in the world, because he arranged all the equipment for me, also for filming and everything. But he realized my problem. And then I did the performance. I mean, I just wrote the performance, I directed it, I worked with Chinese actors, because it was in Chinese. I had this idea also for me to participate, but then I realized it's way too ambitious. So with saying this story, I wanted to just show how important the flexibility of residency organizers is. And I can't talk for each residency organizers that they are so flexible, but at least most of them that I encountered and the stories I've heard, they are flexible, because they know they are working with artists, and things can change, things can really change. And I think that's also important to have in mind when going to a residency and thinking about realizing a certain kind of project. Unless you've been before to that place, I would say leave a place for improvisation and place to get inspired from the surrounding directly.
Thank you. So I don't know, does anybody like has some experiences or to share with us, or some questions? Or we are...
Actually, the first residency that I ever attended, I found through Trans Artists, which brought me to Europe in the first place in 2010. So thank you for your network. And that was more of like an artist commune kind of situation where artists are living in a space together, which is really interesting. La la. And but then I went into a different type of situation, also a group dynamic, and in another occasion, I would go into a situation that was maybe completely solitude. So I think it's also important as an artist to explore different kinds of structures and not always the same kind of structure, because you'll be fed in different ways by each experience. I think it's really important, the story you just told, because the openness of the artist when they arrive and their kind of lack of expectations can be a really valuable tool for them to gain new experiences and to expand their practice as well. So I just wanted to share that and say thank you.
First, I want to say, Bojana, very nice. I like the story. Very, very good. Second, I have a question for the Croatian girl. Why you want to work always in a studio? Why you don't go out? Challenge yourself.
It's not that I always work in the studio. I work with film. That's the basic problem for the residencies. And I sometimes work in studio, I sometimes work out. I mean, it's not like that I'm obligated to have a studio.
I can add something. For example, for artists that work on really long-term and big projects, for example, when you work on film, it's a long production, it takes a long time and everything. And in that sense, you also don't need to look for one residency to enable you everything. You can also split the project in few residencies, or maybe just do the filming do the filming in Croatia and do the post-production in a residency. There is all many combinations that you can do and use this structure and infrastructure of residencies. I mean, I'm not just saying this directly to you, I'm saying it for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the combination, like, okay, I would do that, I would do filming here, I would do post-production there, and I do piece of editing, whatever. So, I mean, but it's impossible to do the whole thing on one place because it's just too complicated.
You can imagine for opera artists, because there is now also, in terms of opera, from the opera, they also want to go to residencies. But for them, it's even more impossible when you 40 people, it's a group of 40 people, so that's even more difficult, and they are actually doing exactly the same thing. So, for example, the librettist can go in one residency, the director in another, the costume designer in another, singers in completely different residency, and then they come back together.
I have two questions. I don't know if they're relevant, but just occurred me. Is there any in your experience and opinion, difference or kind of, how to say, something more preferable situation, something like do your residencies while you're young and emerging artist? Is it more beneficial for younger artists, or what does it mean to somebody who is established, except of the time there? And the part of the question, what is the difference if you have the same conditions, let's say it locally, why would anyone move somewhere else to the same conditions? Yeah, I mean, like material conditions, money, etc., etc. So where is the motivation to do so?
Lala can say, yeah. Maybe she's the right person. Well, I don't know, I think it's good for young artists. I mean, now they all, at least I can speak for Croatia and for this environment here. And what I think that now it's good for our students is that they can go on exchange. There is really a lot of exchange, different kind of Erasmus, CEPUS, whatever. So they go away from home for 6 months, and for most of them is for the first time that they leave their home, and it really has really important, it makes important thing in their life, because they for the first time leave from their parents' house, and in their kind of psychological development it makes kind of big thing. And I think that also the residencies are good in the same manner. They meet people, they go out, they get different perspectives. And I think that's also the good thing, that if you live in one place, that possibility to go somewhere, to rethink your position, to view it a bit from outside, it's always helpful. Yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, and I think going somewhere else always puts you out of your comfort zone on some level. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And I think for artists, that can be quite productive, because it puts you in a different frame of mind. If you're at home, if you are in the place where you always lived, and you have the same resources, of course, but I think that once you go to another place, your work changes. I mean, if you are open to change. I also know artists who've been to a residency and didn't affect them at all. But that's not the point. The point is, when you go somewhere, to be open towards this place and to see how that can change you, how can not change your character, but how can that affect you? What kind of consequences will that have on you and on your work? And to add something else, very often in the workshops I suggest to the participants to sit down and to write a plan for themselves on what kind of projects they are working now and what do they need. So maybe for the next year you don't need at all to go to a residency, you just need to stay where you are and finish what you need to do. It doesn't mean you have to go, you don't have to go. But then when you, for example, if you can't find enough money for post-production, then it's an idea to look for a residency that will enable you this. So I think it's important, and it also depends on the nature of the work of the artist. I think it's important for the artists themselves to make a clear plan, some kind of plan for the near future of things that he or she would need, and then start looking for a residency.
Lala, would you like to add something?
Yes. I need to talk. But from my experience of being like a resident artist, so I started actually like a residency run, which is kind of like when you get into the residency, you kind of live off of that for several years, you know. But I started it with like the Iber residency at the Rijksacademy, which is like a 2-year residency, full board production. And this is a place where you can actually, you know, complete a film project. You have all the equipment, developing film installation. They'll build a spaceship if you need. But in terms of where I was in my artistic development, I think I would have more benefit from that residency now than I did when I was 24. But then afterwards, all these other residencies that I did were kind of, well, not really regional, but yeah, kind of regional. And what I found more beneficial from those residencies, more than actually having the studio and the time to, you know, well, and money to live off of, and a place to live, but what I found more beneficial than actually producing work at that special place is like this network building, because after I've had these residencies, I always kept in touch with these, the places where I was, and new opportunities as an artist came from there. So for example, I think Anne-Marie Turk, I don't know if she's still here, like that residency was really good for me, the Kulturkontakt residency, because I keep on going back to Vienna, and I still have contacts with Vienna, and I'm constantly coming back. And Austria also, like I did several residencies around Austria, and that was like really beneficial just for that network there, you know, going back to Graz, to Vienna, and things like that. Also Istanbul, and that, I think those shorter residencies would have been more beneficial to me like at the beginning, and then the Rijksacademy would have been like a cherry on top, you know, when I had a big project to develop. Now, as becoming more and more mature artist, basically the field of residencies that you can apply for, which have like good conditions, you know, that field kind of narrows because the residencies are looking for people that are less established, that have like a bit of a shorter CV. So, well, it is, you know, but I'm kind of old now. And that didn't go to so many. So that's, you know, that's my 2 cents about it.
Okay, thanks. Maybe, I don't know if there are any other comments, questions, or do you want... Well, I think that we can conclude. Thank you everybody. Thank you for beautiful conversation and nice comments, and that was all. Thanks for organizing.